Hello, this is Virtualis the Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. Today I played an aggressive and tactical move that I thought was good, but was actually a blunder in analysis. However, humans don't play like stockfish, and my aggressive move induced my opponent to make a natural looking move, which was also a blunder. So in a roundabout way, the move I thought was good, but was objectively a blunder according to a robot, actually turned out to be great against a human. Please enjoy. So let's have a look at the review first. So look at that very interesting line with that blunder and the opponent's blunder. So we each had one blunder, and in the analysis, we'll actually have a look at these in a little bit more detail because they're really quite interesting. But after the opening, I managed to capture the lead and eventually got a win. So 82% accuracy, pretty good if I do say so myself. Opponent played pretty well as well with 71, with an accuracy of 71. Let's now move on to the analysis. I played with the black pieces in this position and the opponent led with d4, queen's pawn. I played d5 and then they played knight f3. And basically from this point was I know no theory. I am completely not familiar with the queen's pawn opening, the pseudo-Catalan variation. Yep, don't know it at all. So I just got to play some chess, just played moves in the opening that seemed to make sense. And I thought probably developing the other knights symmetrically here was probably good. Knight f6. They played g3, and when they did that, I thought, okay, so obviously the next couple of moves is going to fianchetto their bishop and then short castle. So basically putting the king in a nice defensive position. So here I thought about what might be best. I actually wondered about c5 because it's almost like a reverse Vienna or a reverse a Grand Prix attack almost, playing with the black pieces rather than white. However, I chickened out and I thought maybe that's bad. So I just developed my other knight, but interesting to see, yes, c5 was actually the best move. So I'll know that for next time. Yep, so they fianchetto the bishop. I developed my other bishop, f5, and then they short castle. So yep, so they did what I thought they were probably going to do. And here I decide to play an aggressive move, queen d7. And my logic here was to line up these two pieces in a battery to basically capture, get rid of that fianchetto bishop, because I just find fianchetto bishops kind of annoying in this setup. Now this actually ends up not actually being that good a move, as we will see a little bit earlier on, and that has to do with the blunders I mentioned earlier. Now they play c4. I wasn't so sure that capturing here was good, so I opted to get my king out of there with long castles. Potentially now I've got a push. Now Stockfish reckons that actually reinforcing the center here was actually very important, so good to know. My opponent, however, opts to develop the other knight rather than straight up capturing, so that ended up bringing us reasonably close back to equality. Here I thought I couldn't see any reason not to capture, so I just captured. That was a mistake, as you will see, almost plus 2.5, but lucky for me, the opponent played e3, which didn't allow them to capitalize on my mistake, and so we're back to equality. And unusual positions, at least for I suppose in the sort of mid 1300s. So we're just playing some chess. So that's nice. Here I now make my so-called blunder. Well, the blunder that Stockfish sees as a blunder. And the reason why this is a blunder is that this attack doesn't work. So my thinking was, if they capture, I'll capture back. If they don't capture, I'll just straight up whack that bishop, get rid of that bishop. But I thought that they will probably capture back, and I'm doing well. Cool bananas. Got rid of that bishop, queen in a sort of a reasonably good position. Now the reason it doesn't work is that after queen captures bishop, the opponent now has a powerful move that forks the queen and the pawn on f7, which of course also comes with a fork of the two rooks. So that whole plan of attack, that whole tactic actually doesn't work. However, my opponent, actually before I do that, if we have a look at the self-analysis, we see something very interesting. So it's only a blunder if the opponent captures. If they don't make that move or they don't see it, the next two best moves for the opponent actually is still reasonably close to equality. So it's only a blunder if they see that powerful line of attack that they had. Now, my opponent responded to my blunder with a blunder of their own by doing a very aggressive counterattack, you know, forking my queen, and again, the pawn on f7. And you can see Stockfish reckons that this was also a blunder. However, if we again look at the best lines, it's only a blunder if I don't capture. If I did capture, it is very good for me. So -2, but if I don't do it, the next two best moves for me are actually pretty much winning for white. +3, +4. So again, it's aggressive counterattack, ostensibly a blunder, but only if the opponent plays the single good response. Now, luckily for me, I did actually see it. I thought, that's not looking good. I probably should whack that knight. So I did whack the knight, and that ended up being good. And then we've got a series of transformations, which ends up me being ahead. So remember, I already caught that pawn, so I'm already +1. And now with the capture, obviously, they capture that back. Here, I whack the bishop. They're forced to, and interesting, I thought they were going to capture, but they decide to capture my queen first, which allows me an escape for my knight. And so that's why it went from sort of -2.5 to over -4. So capture back. My knight is now out of danger from that pawn. And also threatening. So the logical here is they're going to capture the bishop and I capture the pawn. So at the end, I'm now +2, the equivalent of 2 pawns up. And I was very happy here because I also control the fully open D file as well. So I was pretty happy. I was pretty happy in this position. Now, that was a very interesting transformation. I'm going to go through the rest of the game reasonably quickly now because -4, I'm pretty much, you know, winning as long as neither of us, assuming neither of us makes a mistake, I should win, basically, because basically 2 pawns up, otherwise material balance. And my goal here was to try to trade pieces, trade balance pieces, end up in an endgame, up pawns, I should win. So they play e4, which I suppose was fine. I push the knight, so basically attacking pawn and bishop. They move the bishop, obviously. I capture the pawn. Opponent now plays a really good move, I thought. So knight b5. Interesting. No, Stockfish didn't think it was that good. But what I saw was sort of this double attack on that pawn. So there's no way I can actually protect this. And more than that, that would potentially come with check. I'll be potentially forced to move the king either here or here. Here is not good because, you know, I'm sort of putting the king into the open file. Here doesn't work because if I move the king to b8, the knight moves can potentially move to c6. Now, not right away, but potentially there's a fork of the king and rook. So potentially a reasonably good attack, I thought, by the opponent. But I did see a way out. Firstly, pushing that pawn blocks the bishop's access to that pawn, and I expected them to capture. King here, threatening the knight. Knight also now cannot move here with a threat on the rook without risk of being captured. And when, of course, the king is when a piece is directly adjacent to the knight cannot attack that piece with a one single turn move. So they capture, king there. I'm okay, still +2. Knight forced to move back out of the way. Here, I decided to push my e-pawn. My logic here was I didn't want their e-pawn to advance any further, and also opening up the diagonal for my bishop. Opponent plays rook ac1 with an attack. I thought, that's fine, not a problem. I push that pawn. What are you going to do with your knight? They play knight a3, and that was actually a mistake, which I have to admit I didn't see, because that's straight up hanging. And so, yeah, I could have won that, -8.5. I actually didn't see that knight was hanging until after my next move, which was, I thought, didn't potentially like that. Let's defend with a pawn. And I thought, oh, wait a minute, I could have just, yeah, anyway. They, of course, moved their knight out of the way because they saw they were hanging their knight. Here, you know, a knight shuffle, attack the rook. They move their rook out of the way. Yeah, that's fine, I suppose. Yep, opportunity now to trade bishops. So that's good. So we're sort of one piece further. Knight over there. That's fine. Attack that pawn, but that allows me to counterattack. Yep, let's trade pieces. There we go. And here I was actually starting to feel pretty good. And, you know, there's a sort of potential fork here, but it's not exactly a fork because I do have a check. But so I moved my king out of the way. Yeah, rook there, and I thought that's fine. Don't mind trading. So moved the knight with an attack. Also, the rooks now look at each other. They capture, which is what I expected. But now I can force a trade because that comes with check. And now we're down to a rook and pawn endgame where I'm up 2 pawns. So I should be winning. So rest of the game, basically trading pieces, you know, trying to make balanced trades where possible. And here, when the opponent moved their rook there, I suspected their goal was that they're going to capture that pawn. Now, obviously, that doesn't come with check, so that's no problem. And because they were going to do that, no problems capturing. So capture, captures, and now it allows me to whack their rook with a nice skewer of their king. And basically this pawn, these 2 pawns are passed pawns, and so I'm just faster. I can just push my passed pawn and I should be able to queen. And basically that's what happened. They're just not fast enough. Queen, I make another queen. And basically, once you've got 2 queens on the board, you do have to be a little bit careful to not cause a stalemate. And basically, the way to not cause a stalemate is just to make sure you check every turn. Don't try to be too clever. Just check every turn, even if it's uglier and it takes a little bit longer to checkmate. So check every turn, and eventually you should be able to force a checkmate. So good game with the opponent. GG. The insight that I got from this game was just the depth in the tactics in the game of chess. But also at a human psychological level, there can often be gains to be had playing scary looking aggressive moves, as the opponent may respond inaccurately. In this game, my blunder was only a blunder if the opponent saw the single and specific way to immediately exploit it. Otherwise, the next best move basically resulted in a neutral position. There was a similar situation for my opponent's super aggressive counterattack, which Stockfish also called a blunder. I only had a single move that gave me the advantage, making the blunder a blunder. If I didn't see this move, my next best move actually gave a substantial advantage to white. I love seeing positions where the difference between a blunder and a great move is a razor-thin margin. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.